This is principlesofaccounting.com, Chapter 3. In this particular module, we will be discussing the basic elements of expense recognition. In a prior module, recall, we established the principles for revenue recognition, essentially saying that revenue would be recognized or recorded into the accounts when an exchange takes place and the earnings process is virtually complete. With expense recognition, we really have multiple bases for expense recognition, depending on the nature of the particular expense. One basis for recording expenses is by associating cause and effect, or the matching principle. This would be appropriate when a particular expense is driven by a particular revenue event. In this particular diagram, I'm showing that revenues are earned on the one hand, those revenues being recognized using appropriate principles. At the same time period as the revenue is recognized, a certain expense is recorded. A very good example would be salesman's commissions. Salesman's commissions would not be due and payable to the salesman except in the event of a sale. So in the period when the revenue from the sale is recorded, so would be the related salesman's commission. Another very good example of this would simply be the cost of goods sold or the cost of inventory that's sold. That would be recorded in the same period that you deem it appropriate to record revenue. Another basis for expense recognition is systematic and rational allocation. This occurs where costs benefit many periods. For example, suppose we bought a truck in a particular business. It might benefit, as in this case, 8 years of service. It's very difficult, although it's clear that that expenditure is necessary to drive the revenue production cycle, it's not at all clear how exactly that correlates to revenue. And so rather than trying to associate a particular increment of cost with the revenue being generated, we instead simply allocate the cost over all of the periods deemed to be benefited by some systematic and rational process. Depreciation that we'll be seeing here shortly is a very good example of an expense type that's recognized by systematic and rational allocation. Finally, some costs are incurred and we don't see any particular benefit generated from those costs. A storm loss, for example, or a fire loss, or an event of that nature has no revenue generating potential associated with it. And so in that case, where the cost is expired or the event occurs that gives rise to the loss, we would simply recognize that immediately. There is no particular revenue or time period that it can be related to, hence the recognition principle of immediate recognition.